Hey, Rainy Joe here, and this is 1001 Reviews, the series where I plan on reviewing every single album from the 1001 Albums Listened to Before You Die book. And today we're looking at David Bowie's 1975 album, Young American. Young Americans was released underneath the RCA label, produced by various producers with art direction from Eric Stephen Jacobs, nationality UK, and a running time of 40 minutes and 20 seconds. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to mention that I am a David Bowie fan. 2 albums in the back. I got quite a few more there. I got one of these even on the arm. So suffice it to say, I am a big fan of the man. That being said, Young Americans is one that I am not as attached to as some may be. So this should be interesting to go back down to refresh my memory on this one. And we'll see if maybe I'll like it a bit more this time around. But from what I remember, the majority of this was a little disappointing. It's important to note that this is also David Bowie's first soul album, or plastic soul as he would refer to it as, with this one and then the second one, Station to Station, being the follow-up and being the far superior record of his plastic soul era. That being said, let's just not waste any more time and jump into Young Americans, the first track here out of this 8-track album. Let's go, Young Americans. Sax is great on this one. I do like this song, I'll say that. Backup vocals are fantastic. His vocal delivery through the soul era, especially on this album, is a lot more croony, which I do think he pulls off quite well. A good song about almost nostalgia, rose-tinted glasses almost. Very politically driven as well here, this line here. Kind of dating the track a little bit, but still relevant. His switch to singing in falsetto after he mentions falsetto he does a great job right there. Great vocals on this track, great production. Oh, amazing reference slipped in there. Beautifully slipped in. Ready? Best part of the song, his vocals taking over while everything fades away. Oh, so wonderfully produced. Ugh, great. Okay, I'll pause that. Great song, wonderfully produced. Great themes of marriage and nostalgia and political awareness at the time and responsibilities as you get older. Lots of things kind of blend together in that track in this gorgeous soul fashion as David Bowie croons quite gorgeously on this track. And on top of that, his vocals paired with the backup vocals here just kind of meld together in such a gorgeous melodic fashion. On top of that, the horns as well on this thing are extremely well played and really just feel like they complement Bowie's voice quite a bit throughout this track. Amazing chorus. There's really nothing negative to be said about this track. It is, in my opinion, either the best or second best song on here, and gets a 10 from me as far as tracks go. I do think it is a great David Bowie soul track, but I will say this is one of the rare examples on this album where I really love the song, if my memory still remains the same. Next, we've got the track Win, 4 minutes and 47 seconds. Let's go. That part's gorgeous. It's very dreamy, this track. Much slower track, much slower vocals from Bowie here. Again, those backup vocalists too, coming back from Young Americans. Fantastic. Kind of Bowie being a little, full of himself and narcissistic in this track. Something he would touch down on a few times throughout his life. I love the chorus on this. Like that telephone effect in the background too. Again, the very dreamy production here is the highlight, I think. Even greater than the vocals. There's that ringing sound, gorgeously inserted. The way it also has that dreamlike effect and it echoes, just feels like a precursor of what a lot of people today and maybe the 80s and 90s would use in their music. It's almost like a pre-vaporwave type thing. Heavy amounts of reverb. That Tony Visconti production. Gorgeous. One of the best producers to ever do it. At least in the rock industry. And then a fade out. That eerie "It Ain't Over" too at the end there from Bowie, hinting that this is just the beginning for his career, which in many ways it was. That is a great track. Again, his take on soul here is still fantastic, still brilliant, as he puts on this very narcissistic image, which is something that Bowie would do a few times throughout his career, like I said. But he always does it justifiably so. And I like that one a lot. I'm going to give it an 8. Now, I know this is where we get into territory where I don't like it as much, but I could be wrong. Maybe that'll change. Fascination. Let's go. Very funky. Has a more funk influence on it. Funk soul. It's funkier than I remember. I like the funky instrumental. And there's those iconic backup vocals that have, laid the background of the last 2 tracks. See, this is... Okay, I'll pause this for a second. Here's my issue with the song. I can already remember what my problem was. Is although very funky and fun and enjoyable for the most part, it is almost 6 minutes long, and at 3 minutes and 40 seconds, you really start to feel a drag already. So the next 2 minutes, again, I don't think add a whole lot. I think the song would have been better as just a 3 or so minute track. As funky and as fun as the instrumental might be, it does not justify the length of the track here. Yeah, it's still going, guys. It's still going. Pretty much the same thing. I like that, but not enough to make this worth it. I find myself getting a little bored with this track by the end. Alright, that's the end of that one. Like I've said, goes on for too long, despite the funky beat and his vocals, again, being as great as they typically are. It is too long of a track. It's too long. And for that, it drops the rating down to a 6. If this was a 3-minute track, I think this is like a solid 8 almost, 7.5. But because it is such a long track and really overstays its welcome, I'm going to give it a 6. Next, we've got the song Right. Don't remember it. Let's just go. Nice drumming. Good percussion so far. And again, the performances and whatnot, instrumentally and everything, are pretty top notch and quite well produced on this thing. Like that, for example, that saxophone always comes in and always sounds just very clean. If I'm not mistaken, I thought he plays the sax on this. No, he does not. David Sanborn on saxophone. Probably the funkiest Bowie ever gets is on this record, so that is a plus. A full funk-fledged record from Bowie would have been a breath of fresh air. This is the closest you'll ever get, I think. Just want to quickly pop in and say that this song, if it isn't clear, is about gay sex. Or just sex, if you don't want to put the label on it. Just 2 people banging, just boinking it out. Not the first time Bowie has ventured into, homoerotic territories. Or just erotic territories, even. I like this song more than I thought I would. Because I thought I liked this one less than Fascination. But this is fun. This is very jammy, very funky. The way Bowie, interjects his sort of lyrics and constantly jumps back and forth between him and the backup vocals. It's almost like they're playing together. It's like a give and take, if you catch my drift. Kind of like the action that this song is alluding to. Man, the female vocalists throughout this album really do, take control once in a while, and boy, do they steal the show. Fantastic vocals from them. I like that one. I'm going to give it a 7. I like that one a lot. Very funky, and although a bit repetitive, is still quite a jam, quite enjoyable. I'm going to give it a 7. Next, we've got Somebody Up There Likes Me. David Sanborn with that sax. Clearly alluding to celebrities or a politician. I'll say this, I find myself enjoying more of these tracks more than I initially did. I remember way back when I first heard Bowie's discography in this album, I was not a huge fan of this album. Even on revisits, I typically always glossed over it. The backup vocals here, I think that's Bowie here, kind of harmonizing with himself. Adds a lot of depth, adds a lot of texture. Those gentle oohs. This is a very disturbing sounding track, and given the nature of the song, makes sense. This politician who is, clearly letting the fame go to his head. Another track that, again, I feel like goes on a bit too long. Alright. I like the ideas. I like the concept here. I like the instrumental, and I like, the backup vocals here that harmonize with Bowie, and the oohs and the ahs that are feeling quite angelic and almost powerful, kind of alluding to the concept of this politician. But again, it does go on, again, too long, 6.5 minutes, and you get the idea at about 4 minutes. So again, really doesn't need the extra runtime on this thing. Just feels like he kind of padded out a lot of these tracks longer than they should have been. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 6.5. No, I'll give it a 6. Okay, next we've got Across the Universe. If I'm being honest, I hated this song the first time I heard it. This cover that Bowie does. And I last time I heard it, which was about sometime last year when I re-listened, I still didn't like it. And it's really just because I don't think it holds a candle to the original Beatles version. So let's just go ahead and hear it. But I don't imagine my feelings are going to change too much, especially since I've been listening to the Beatles a lot. And I just don't like his vocals on this. It's almost too dramatic. Don't get me wrong, the soul spin on it's nice. And the production and whatnot here offers a very unique, perspective on the song. But I don't like his vocals on this one. It doesn't have that same desolate feeling that the original Beatles one has. Yeah, it really just doesn't hold a candle to the original. It just feels over dramatic to the point where it ruins the original tone and just, again, perspective that I feel like the first iteration of the song offers with the Beatles. And again, his vocals here, not only do they just not fit the track, but they also feel like Bowie is more in a karaoke element, which might be sacrilegious to say, but I'm just not feeling this one at all, and I really just do not like this cover. This has not changed. I don't like that. I don't like that long dragging out of that out there either. I like the drumming here. I do like the drumming there. Alright, that does it for that song. Not a fan of that one, as I've said. Not a great cover. I don't think Bowie does covers very well, to be quite honest. Or very rarely does them well. Much better when he's influenced rather when he's just doing a direct copy. Do not like that one. I'm going to give that one a 5. I just don't like his vocals on it, to be honest. I'm just going to give it a 5. It's right down the middle because I think everything else about the song is pretty enjoyable. Next is Can You Hear Me? Very heavy drums. This is another track here where I just find it kind of bland for the most part. Didn't realize how great the percussion was throughout this entire album. I think back then, when I first heard this was when I first getting into music. I wasn't as technically as adept to the music as I am now. Again, these backup singers do a fantastic job. Okay. Don't have much to say about that one. That's why I didn't have much to react to here. I do not like the song. Yeah, I should probably take that away. Do not like the song as much as I initially liked it, clearly. But I just think that this song feels quite bland, and I just do not vibe with this one. I think, again, everything's great here, but his take on soul isn't that interesting to me to warrant Young Americans as a whole, as much as I think his next album manages to pull off, which that's a video in itself. But Can You Hear Me is going to get a 6. Still above average performance here. Everything still quite impressive, but not as good as, much of the other stuff here. And then we have Fame, the last track here, the most iconic track here, the most well-known, one of Bowie's biggest songs. And on top of that, John Lennon providing backup vocals here is also important to note. So let's just jump into Fame. Great song, by the way. I'm just gonna say that right off the bat. Like that intro. It's just so fun, so funky, so soulful. The song's, themes kind of going back to Somebody Up There Likes Me with Fame and celebrity status. There's, famous wife beater John Lennon in the background adding great vocals. Such an iconic, instrumental as well. Always utilized so well too and everything. Oh, that drumming, that descent, fantastic. And that gorgeous hi-hat. Also co-written by John Lennon, important to note. Would have loved a whole album with the two of them collaborating. Would have been very interesting. Gotta get a rain check on. Pain. That eerie sound that comes in, and then music to my ears. It's almost like the descent of the tone here kind of replicates the descent of madness that comes with Fame. Great song, great way to finish off the album. I really love that one. I'm gonna give that one a 10. I think it's one of Bowie's most iconic mainstream tracks. I think it is a great take on fame and celebrity status. I think it is funky and soulful. John Lennon's co-writing abilities too coming in quite strong here, as you could tell. I don't think this is a fully David Bowie written track. So that one gets a 10. And that pretty much does it for the listening portion of the album. And let's talk about this album overall. So when it comes down to it, this is David Bowie's first venture into soul music. One of two albums that he would do in that genre. The second one being Station to Station, right up there in the background that I've got. And honestly, as fun as, Young Americans is as a track, and as fun as Fame is, and a couple of decent songs here like When or Fascination, I do think there is quite a bit here that just kind of meanders a bit too long and doesn't know which direction it is going in exactly, as you have certain tracks on here, like Fascination, for example, which just go on far too long, and at almost it's like 6.5 minutes long, 2 minutes of it could have been just entirely taken out and it wouldn't have made much of a difference at all. On top of that, some of these tracks just have really long fade outs, and that alone feels like a red flag in showing the fact that these songs don't really have too much to offer. Vocally, instrumentally, production-wise, everything on here is fantastic, as Bowie croons on most of this track, or most of this album, sorry, and does a great job with this crooning. But even that being said, it doesn't really feel like it justifies an entire album within this genre without exploring the ideas too much. I feel like this was just him sort of dabbling in the idea with not too much focus or an idea of what soul can or should be with his style. I feel like he captures that a lot more on Station to Station, which, well, again, we'll get a video one day, as it is in this book, which is another thing I want to mention, as this and Station to Station are both in this book, and I don't feel like Young Americans necessarily needs to be in it. If there are two soul albums from Bowie, just take the better one and throw it in there and remove the other one, in my opinion. Again, the first and last track here are the best tracks, and then the middle of the album is where it begins to meander quite a bit, in my opinion. But overall, I do find this album to be quite enjoyable, and if you're a David Bowie fan, you will obviously want to listen to this thing. But, you know, just for a casual music fan or somebody who's just trying to explore as much as possible, this isn't the one that I would personally recommend. The soft rating of it comes to a 7.3, but I'm going to harden that rating down to a 7 out of 10. It's a good album, but it is not a great album, in my opinion. And that also gets a NE for not essential, as I do think, given the fact that Station to Station's in this book as well, there really is no need to also include another David Bowie soul album that doesn't quite capture the sound and style like Station to Station does in a much better fashion. And that is coming from somebody who is a diehard Bowie fan. I know you'd expect me to say that everything of his is essential, but I will admit that something like this, you know, is not necessary to listen to if you are trying to explore as much music as possible or just different arrays of genres. So that pretty much does it for this review. Let's go ahead and see what the next album we're listening to is in the 1001 Albums to Listen to Before You Die book. I'm going to go ahead and call my brother Ricky and see if he can give me a number. Hopefully he'll pick up. Hopefully he's not sleeping. I feel bad if he is.
Yeah.
Yo, are you sleeping?
I'm laying down.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't want to interrupt you, but can you pick a number between 1 and 1001?
Yeah, it's a real hard question.
Just
I feel like 311?
311?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just check 311. All right, 311. That sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Good night.
Yeah, night.
It is 10:16 p.m. at night, and he works early tomorrow, so bit of a dick move on my part. But 311 will be album Roxy Music's Country Life. Personally, I am familiar with Roxy Music, but have not listened to much of their music. I am familiar, however, with Brian Eno, the keyboardist, because who isn't familiar with that man? So that will be the next album I am looking at in the series. So if you want to watch that, please subscribe. And of course, if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe to follow along listening to every album from the 1001 Albums to Before You Die book. And as always, my name is Randy Joe, and I'm signing off.